Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, born and bred in the bustling heart of West Los Angeles, his journey through the glitz and glamour of Hollywood is nothing short of legendary. From his formative years as a latchkey kid navigating the labyrinth halls of University High School's groundbreaking IPS program, he displayed an innate flair for the extraordinary. Immersed in an avant-garde learning experience and even brushing shoulders with the mysteries of metaphysics, he was destined for greatness from the very start. But it was on stage where he truly came alive, captivating audiences worldwide with his sensational comedy juggling act, sharing a spotlight with icons like Ray Charles, Penn and Teller, Pee Wee Herman, Bob Saget, and the late Bill Hicks. He effortlessly stole the show, leaving audiences spellbound with his comedic genius. Yet his talent extends far beyond the realm of performance. With a pen as sharp as his wit, he penned screenplays that garnered acclaim and accolades, cementing his status as a visionary in the industry. From the acclaimed DC Dog to the groundbreaking Where Life Begins, his writing prowess knew no bounds, earning him prestigious awards and accolades like a Primetime Emmy in 2009. But it doesn't end there. Driven by an insatiable hunger for a creative expression, he ventured into the world of filmmaking, mastering every facet of the craft with unparalleled finesse, from the glitzy red carpets to the prestigious stage of the Austin Film Festival. Today, with multiple features under his belt like A New Vinny World, Davids vs. Goliaths, Human Smoothies, June, Killer Blind Date, The Shed, Siblings, The Couple, Joe Experimental, and A Natural Disorder of Things, he continues to redefine the very essence of cinematic excellence. So brace yourselves today for the one, the only, James Ridgley. James, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I could hear all the applause. It's deafening.
James, I'd love to dive into it with you. Your journey from a latchkey kid in West Los Angeles to becoming a prominent figure in Hollywood. Now, can you share with us some pivotal moments that shaped this path for you?
Yes, I will say. So IPS was this called Innovative Program School. So it was a school within a school of the public high school. And we got to do a lot of encounter group therapy type things, Earhart seminar training, a lot of different things. And you could also do what your basic high school syllabus was as well. Mm. But what I did was, besides doing metaphysical classes, which I know that you know about this, I had an experience with my metaphysics teacher where he telepathically communicated something to me, and I know it was absolutely true. So I haven't had that experience since because it was on his side, transferring it to me. But I know it exists, and in the back of my mind, one of my favorite films is Powder, Victor Salva's movie Powder, which has a lot of the themes of this supernatural kind of metaphysical connections and spirit and love and being transformed by it. And this is what really got me going into screenwriting and why I wanted to write a script like that had the essence of what I felt about the world. And so that started later, but first in high school, the last year in high school, I saw a performance for our school within a school of a rope walker and a juggler, like these two different acts that did these phenomenal things with juggling and comedy and this beautiful style of rope walking on a slack rope. So I did everything I could to find out how to walk on this rope. It was so beautiful and artistic. In the meantime, I found juggling and I did that. So every day I would bring my juggling balls in this pack I made myself to juggle and practice any moment I could in high school. And out of there, I ended up working at the Renaissance Fair, creating an act out of nowhere. And believe me, I have a twin brother, and we were both really popular in elementary school, going into a little in junior high, where we played sports, basketball, all this stuff. And we were a lot of fun, and we got into trouble, and we had a gang of kids we all were friends with. But then I went into the stage of kind of being very self-aware and not feeling socialized like at parties. Mm-hmm. and extremely shy throughout this period, even though with good friends, I was very active. So juggling and trying to do a show was this tremendous, I would walk around the Renaissance Fair where I got booked to do an act I didn't have yet, just to be a street performer. And I would go crazy with, should I do it now? Is there a place here I could work on this stupid act I wrote that I had no experience writing? And eventually I got up the nerve through these 6 weekends. But this was a pivotal moment in my beginning to let go of this crippling shyness, to be able to be out and perform and also understand what comedy is. So finally, the last 2 weekends, I started to do these little shows and I got the confidence to build it more and more. So that led to years of traveling around the country doing these types of festivals and a lot more. And but if I didn't have the drive to get out there, like the first time I went out on the road, I was going to do this Renaissance Fair in Chicago, and I was like, how do I get out there? Where do I stay when I'm there? And I had to make decisions. And I had to just go out there and fend for myself and figure it out. So this drive to accomplish something was huge and has always followed me. So when I went from juggling act with comedy to just stand up, people were like, well, you just do stand up now? How can I book you? I know you as the comedy juggler. And I was like, but I made you laugh, right? So book me as just talking laughter. But it wasn't easy. It was like a full career move, you know? And so I don't know, that's one aspect of how I used my drive. I was practicing juggling and rope walking and unicycle riding like 12 hours a day. And then I would perform on the weekends, and it was nonstop. So when it came to actually writing screenplays, then that's a whole new mindset, which in the 80s and 90s, if you were a stand-up or a comedy person, you were writing these things. And anyway, so that led to everything and my ability to just keep going.
So what do you think that I'll say apprehension was when people knew that you were a juggling comedic act to just comedy? Why do you think people were so like, oh, I know you as the juggling comedian, but not just the comedian. I'm not sure if I want to hire just the comedian.
Because even though it's slightly different, it's unknown. It just becomes an unknown. I don't know, it's just weird. I don't understand it. But I understand that people think of branding and marketing or a fixed thing they're familiar with. And when you go even slightly outside of the box, just a lot of questions come up.
So now you made this transition. You went down to Chicago. You had to figure it out all on your own. This was, way before internets and cell phones and all these other apps that we have now that make life easier. What are those challenges like for you? You're jumping in the car and you're saying, hey, I'm just going to go figure this out.
Yeah, well, the first time I went to Chicago, I got a ride with a craftsperson who I had met at the LA Fair that was going out there. So I booked the show with a fabulous guy named John Mills, who was running the show way back when, in 84 or 3 or something. I forget exactly, 87, I forget. But and I went out there and he had his car to live in on the site. And I didn't. I mean, I don't know what. I met people. I got a tent. I got someone's booth to sleep in. I don't know what I did. But the next year I was prepared when I had a van that I, made into a bed in the back and, a place where I could live. But the first year was crazy.
So what I want to ask you, why did you choose to stop doing the comedy juggling and just focus on comedy?
Because I wanted to be with the big boys. I had worked with Penn and Teller at Renaissance fairs. Penn Jillette had a great juggling act himself with a lot of verbiage and funny stuff. And I wanted to start emulating them getting onto TV shows and other things. And I knew that as a stand-up, you could go much further because if you're a juggler, you're a prop guy and you always will be.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. You're even worse than Carrot Top because You have to, your juggling is not only a prop, sometimes it looks as almost below that, you know? I'm just saying what the climate was then.
So you're not a fan of Carrot Top, is what I'm hearing.
Not really.
So when we look at, you went from the juggling comedy and said, hey, I got to drop the juggling piece to be a prop. We go right into comedy. So then how does this background in your performance on stage shape with your approach to writing?
Um, well, I think I got better with words, that's for sure. And then I met people who were writing TV sitcom spec scripts, and I joined a writers group to do that, to break into being, on the 6 or 7 writers that are on these groups that write, for professional TV shows and all that. So I went there, I went that way. And I found that really difficult. And the more I got into it, the more critiques I got about how to change my script. And I just felt like feature films were where it was at for me. So that's what I worked on. And I had my first script that was commercial was DC Dog, which went to a bunch of companies that had first look deals with Disney at the time. And the marketing department of one of these groups wanted to look at it. I assume that was some Disney or Disney subsidiary.
Yeah.
But then the writer's strike of, I think, 1984 happened, or 87. I forget when that one was, decades ago. And that ruined that. That would have been a young screenwriter, just going out, and hitting it with a big sale, and it didn't happen.
So now you'd mentioned this writing group where you have the opportunity to kind of get in with certain people at that time. Now, when we look at writing groups, it's a lot of everyone's kind of in the same circle. We're all struggling. We're all trying to make it. We're all trying to get it. Do you believe there's still a large, important piece of getting what I'll say as peer review and sitting down and doing these table reads before we go anywhere?
Oh, yeah. Hugely important. But, in the beginning, I was young and naive, just like everywhere I went. I had that social shyness that I could break through, certainly with people I trusted, then I could be the life of the party. I mean, that was like this duality that I kind of like work with, which right now, might have got me a diagnosis with autism, because that could be what I'm dealing with. And I have 2 kids who are on the autism spectrum, which is why when I went to currently now, finally, the 30-year dream of writing and directing my own screenplays, into making them into feature films, I chose to use that subject material for what is now known as a natural disorder of things. And
talk to me more about that. So we have a natural disorder of things, which, as you're saying, kind of has these themes of being on the spectrum in there. Walk us through this project that you're working on.
Well, it's filmed. Yeah, I wrote it, directed, I'm editing. I'm almost with the final cut. I have a music with it. I have a preliminary sound design, but I need to export it to get to professional people to do the 5.1 surround sound and coloring. So it's at that stage, which is close, but.
And what can people expect from a natural disorder of things?
Well, it's a coming of age story about a high school student in the senior year who gets a late diagnosis of autism.
Okay.
And how he deals with a girlfriend, with his parents who are on both sides of whether to medicate or not and what to do about it, and his prospects for a college that he's always dreamt about getting into. Those 3 factors.
And on your timeline, when do you think it's going to be released out into the world?
Well, I hope by August or September.
Beautiful.
It's tricky when you're at micro budget like I am, which I'm now doing an Indiegogo campaign to get fundraising for the finishing funds, because I got through production with what money I had,
right.
Mostly to get this thing done with a few people that supported the core of this production. And so yeah, Indiegogo, a natural disorder of things. And then I have 2 others that are in post that I already shot 2 that I'm editing, and then we'll get released those once natural disorder of things is finished.
Now, when you sit down and you pull out that pencil and it's all sharp, we got our white paper in front of us. What themes would you say resonate with you most when you go to write?
Well, I'll tell you, when I finally got rid of the idea that I'm going to sell $1 million script, which was important to get over because, you know, just after COVID had happened, it was already getting through COVID. I had two original TV pilots in development, and I had three horror scripts in line for funding. One, they were going to send me to New York to direct. And this was all fantastic. And then the COVID expenses, you have to have people there doing testing, everybody every day. It like gave 20%, 30% more to every budget. So they dropped it. They dropped me going to New York, and they dropped the three scripts. So I said, okay, I got to make my own, you know, and I got camera equipment, which are 6K pocket cinema cameras, shooting 6K. It's not bad. And I had to get the blank piece of paper and write down, what can I write now that I know so well that are personal stories that can be shot in my house?
Right.
That's what I had to do. So the first one was Thanksgiving, called Siblings, which was Thanksgiving dinner, which is a dark comedy about how the father of the house dies on Thanksgiving from an odd way, comedic way, and the siblings have to deal with it. All shot in my house. So that was like, how cheap can I make it? How many cast members can I limit it to? And in fact, the one who would play out of the five siblings, one of them, which would be my character, who is telling the story and owns the house, you know, where dad lives and all the events happen, became the point of view of the camera.
Oh,
So I shot it all in point of view, except for some of the connecting tissue scenes were my character of Kirk, years later when he has a family of adopted kids. And that goes through the themes of the original, of the bulk of the movie.
that's really cool. A lot of the times you'll see, like these POVs when it's, an action film or something, but in this case here, you're telling a comedic drama from the POV of it.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Now, I know you kind of lit up a little bit there when you talked about this comedic death. Are you able to share with us how he dies? Or can you share with us
Yeah,
how he
sure I
dies?
can. In fact, the poster, if you saw the poster on the IMDb page, it's not released yet, but the poster shows it all, is that there's a corpse lying there with a big bulge underneath the sheet. And so he died in a wonderful way that most men would dream about dying.
So do you enjoy writing more comedy versus drama or horror? Is there if you had to say I can only write in this one genre, what would that genre be?
Oh God, see, are you intuitive or something? Because this is the most difficult question I have currently. I've always done comedy. Some
Mhm.
of my best scripts, if they're action comedies, even if they have dramatic moments, of course, I look for the comedy in them. Okay. So some of my best work is that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But when I look at the three films I have, the third one is a dark comedy horror film, which is the one I shot most recently, called The Couple.
Right.
And that I barely have an assembly in the edit yet. So when I think about releasing, The Coming of Age is the one I think is my best film. And it's the coming of age drama. So I'm very conflicted about whether I will end up being in comedy, because I feel prouder of something that really says something. To me, the coming of age story says something. We can see someone trying to adjust to the turmoil in their lives
Right.
and seeking a way above it.
Hmm.
So, and that goes back to the movie Powder. That was a drama, which could be a coming of age drama as well. So I have a feeling I'm going to end up there rather than the comedy being what my what my thrust. But the thing is that I'm discovering this new, it's really quite new to be the director writer.
Mhm.
So, so whatever mileage I'm getting now is not the mileage that's going to be presented to the world, and I'm going to have to see how that turns out.
Yeah.
If comedy becomes successful, then I'll probably go there. But that's an unknown. Yeah, it really is.
So you brought up this neat piece of director writer. So I want to ask you, a lot of times we hear about directors having a director's chair on set. And it's that nice little bit. If you had to have a personal item on set that represented you and it wasn't the director's chair, what would it be?
It would be a dirty chai latte with soy milk and no foam.
Just sitting on a table somewhere, and
For
every
me to
shot, there
drink.
he is. That's James.
Okay, so tell me more about what this means. I mean, that comes to my mind, dirty chai latte.
No, that's perfect. And I wanted to ask you, with your extensive experience, if you could rewrite the ending to any classical film in your mind, or anything that you can think of, what film would you pick, and what would you change the ending to be?
Oh my God. Can I can I make that go somewhere else? Like,
100%, wherever you like.
well, okay. The ending to Powder, again, I bring this movie up, is amazing. And I don't really want to destroy what it is, but look at the ending of that. There's another, Mark Pellington made a film, Arlington Road. Look at the circular way that that film comes and goes and ends is brilliant. I point out, what other films? American Beauty is an incredible film. And if you look at the tone of that and how it is a delicate tone to keep. And I think the ending goes with that tone so well. Like, how could you think of something, better to end like these three films?
That's fair. So let me throw a monkey wrench here for you then.
Yeah.
What's the most unusual or unexpected source of inspiration you've been drawn to when it comes to your screenwriting or developing characters?
Um, I right now I'd have to say probably real life events. Like when I went to write A Natural Disorder of Things, I used things from my family experience with children with autism,
Mhm.
but I also use two or three key moments that happened in my life in a love relationship that happened my first love in high school and how it ended. And I used those probably three hugely pivotal moments. And that gave me something to dress the relationship part of that movie on, which to me, that's why I think I could write that screenplay as quickly as I did and be able to film it and make it as quickly as I did. Does that answer the
Yeah, no,
question?
100%. So
Yeah.
a different question. What advice would you give to aspiring writers or filmmakers that are out there?
Well, for writers, I would say get feedback from people, get YouTube and get Michael Arndt's story about endings
Mhm.
on YouTube and work those things and go from your log line goes into a larger log line, into a 3/4 page synopsis, into a 5-page outline, into a 40-page scene compilation of log lines, descriptions of the scenes into what the story is.
Okay.
If you go that route, you'll always keep that log line in mind for what your essence of your story is. And then when you have a 40 pages of log lines and descriptions of scenes and places that you've thought out creatively, working toward the characters, of course, character bios are extremely important. But when you do that and you put it into final draft, then you can think about dialogue, and your dialogue should come from the character traits that you use for each character that you've mapped out to be either complementary and mostly against, contrasting to the other characters. And if you do that with your dialogue will always be different from each other's, each character will have different dialogue.
So
Those
what,
are,
yeah, no, 100%. And so I guess that kind of leads me into another question. We've been asking you questions all day, is that what do you find is a question that people tend to ask you more often than not about writing?
why do you do it? There's 80, I was going to say million, but okay. 80,000 screenwriters in LA, probably. I'm making this up, but
Sure.
it's probably 180. Seriously, 7 million people. There's probably 250,000 screenwriters. And guess how many people get a film made?
249,000.
No, 240 get a film made a year, maybe. I mean, the odds against success in screenwriting is if you're not, and it doesn't matter what reason you're doing it, as long as it's strong enough to keep you in the game and keep going and keep inventing and keep learning. You have to keep learning, and people have to keep giving you critiques and professional critiques, that people that you can trust.
Yeah. No, it's fair. And James, I have time for one last question for you today, and it's, what makes you smile?
Oh boy, talking with strangers makes me smile. My mom, any picture you take anywhere, she's in a corner of it smiling. And I realized that I take that trait from her because she could start a conversation with anybody and everybody. And this is something I love to do, is find out about people and introduce myself through finding out what they're about, kind of like what you're doing. But I also have comedy at my disposal that comes up, and I tend to make people laugh and just interact with people. I think people as individuals are incredible. Humanity, different story, but individuals.
No, I love that. And James, where can people learn more about you?
JamesRidgleyFilms.com. And of course, check out Indiegogo, hopefully for my fundraising, Natural Disorder of Things.
Amazing. And as I said, James, that was the last question I had for you with our time together here on Coffee with Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone out there, remember to smile to inspire, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.